وخلفتي وصاحب اللواء قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبت يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بزتي، وقد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأحمى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيته خاصتي وحامتي، لمها لمهي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ويؤلمهم ويخرجني ما يخرجنهم، وأنا حرب لمن حربه وسلم لمن سلمه وعدو لمن عادى لهم ومحب لمن أحبهم، إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزيا ولا فلكا يدرو إلى بحري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبته هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال أمين جبريل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وأبوها وبنوها. فقال جبريل يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبريل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرأك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبينة ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مزية ولا فلكا يدري ولا بحر يجري ولا فلك يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله عليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبريل معانة الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى عليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جميع شيتنا ومحبتنا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفر لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب القعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جميع من شيعتنا ومحيبنا وفي هم محموم إلا فرجت الله هما ولا مغموم إلا كشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيئتنا فاحزوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
جو مومنین مسجد کے اطراف میں یا ہال کے اطراف میں چہل قدمی فرما رہے ہیں ان سے مؤدبانہ گزارش ہے کہ فرش اعضاء پہ تشریف لے آئیں تاکہ مجلس شروع کی جا سکے. اب میں راحیل پاشا صاحب سے گزارش کروں گا کہ وہ فرش اعضاء پر آئیں اور نذرانہ عقیدت پیش کریں. برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلندتر صلوات.
بارے دیگر صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
سکینہ بی بی کے بین عرفان حرم میں محشر مچا رہے ہیں. سکینہ بی بی کے بین عرفان حرم میں محشر اٹھا رہے ہیں. بپا رانڈھو میں شور ماتم حسین مرنے کو جا رہے ہیں. کہاں ہو عباس اون اکبر کہاں ہو قاسم حسن کے دلبر کہاں ہو عباس اون اکبر کہاں ہو قاسم حسن کے دلبر سواری لاؤ رکاب تھامو امام تم کو بلا رہے ہیں. سکینہ بی بی سمو سے گھوڑے کے ایک بچی لپاٹ گئی بے قرار ہو کے، سوموں سے گھوڑے کے ایک بچی لپاٹ گئی بے قرار ہو کے، بنا کے باہوں کا اپنی جھولا، حسین اس کو جھلا رہے ہیں۔ سکینہ بی بی بڑی قیامت کا ہے منظر، جناب فضا کا امتحان ہے۔ بڑی قیامت کا ہے منظر، جناب فضا کا امتحان ہے۔ بہن سے چھپ کر حسین بے کس لباس کہنا منگا رہے ہیں۔ سکینہ بی بی رباب کے دل سے کوئی پوچھے کہ جس کا سب کچھ تو لٹ چکا ہے، رباب کے دل سے کوئی پوچھے کہ جس کا سب کچھ تو لٹ چکا ہے، بچا ہے خیمے میں ایک جھولا، اسے بھی ظالم جلا رہے ہیں۔ نبی کے بیٹے کفر کے اقداس، قرآن سے کم تو نہیں ہے ناصر۔ نبی کے بیٹے کفر کے اقداس، قرآن سے کم تو نہیں ہے ناصر۔ نہ جانے کیسے ہیں یہ مسلمان، قرآن پہ خنجر چلا رہے ہیں۔ سکینہ بی بی کے بین عرفان حرام میں محشر اٹھا رہے ہیں. صلوات. بار دیگر صلوات. بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو. بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو. جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو. بانو کہاں تلاش. زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہیں سب مل کے بیبیاں. زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہیں سب مل کے بیبیاں. جب دیکھتی تھی روز وہ وقت زوال کو. بانو کہاں تلاش. لیلا یہ دعا کرتی تھی بعد کربلا. یا رب جدا نہ کرنا کبھی ماں سے لال کو. بانو کہاں تلاش. شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی. جھولے سے لا کے دے دیا بانو نے لال کو. بانو کہاں تلاش. بازار شام میں وہ اسیروں کا قافلہ عابد نہ بھول پائے کبھی اس خیال کو. بانو کہاں تلاش کریں اپنے لال کو. جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو بانو کہاں تلاش صلوات
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلندتر صلوات. غازی کی شان میں چند مصرے اور اس کے بعد میں قبلہ مولانا رضوان رضوی صاحب سے اس کو زحمت دوں گا. اس لیے جاتے ہیں سب اہل تمنا آج بھی، اس لیے جاتے ہیں سب اہل تمنا آج بھی، کربلا تو ہے مسلمانوں کا کعبہ آج بھی. اس لیے جاتے ہیں سب اہل تمنا آج بھی، کربلا تو ہے مسلمانوں کا کعبہ آج بھی. اور گر نہیں ملتی مرادیں روضہ عباس پر، گر نہیں ملتی مرادیں روضہ عباس پر، آستاں پہن کے کیوں جاتی ہے دنیا آج بھی. اور تشنگی میں پیاس کو جس نے شکست فاش دی، تشنگی میں پیاس کو جس نے شکست فاش دی، ڈھونڈتی پھرتی ہے اس سقے کو دریا آج بھی. اور ہم جو ظالم پر تبرہ کر رہے ہیں صبح و شام، ہم جو ظالم پر تبرہ کر رہے ہیں صبح و شام، ہے خفا اس بات پر ہم سے زمانہ آج بھی. اور یہ یزید وقت تیرے خون کی تاثیر ہے، یہ یزید وقت تیرے خون کی تاثیر ہے، کفر کے فتوے سرے دیوار لکھنا آج بھی. اور مانگ کر باب الحوائج کے وسیلے سے ظفر، مانگ کر باب الحوائج کے وسیلے سے ظفر، کھا رہے ہیں ہم در زہرا کا صدقہ آج بھی. برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلندتر صلوات. اب میں قبلہ کعبہ مولانا رضوان رضوی صاحب سے گزارش کروں گا کہ وہ فرش اعضا پر آئیں اور جناب سید ان کے لال کا فرصہ دیں.
آپ لوگوں سے گزارش ہے کہ تھوڑا سا آگے آ جائیں نعرہ صلوات کے ساتھ. اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ الذی قصرت عن رؤیته ابصار الناظرین وعجزت عن نعته اوہام الواصفین. الحمد للہ رب العالمین. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you know, we began the series of Majalis last night with the same verse of Surah Al Imran, verse number 103. for which we spoke very briefly about the tafsir of that ayah under the topic of unity. And we talked about, if I can just recap, last night very briefly as to who is the audience of this verse of Quran. As we all know that every single ayat of Quran has an audience, and Allah is discussing different people through this book. And when He refers to mu'mineen, He refers in different fashion. When He refers to kafirin, He refers in different fashion. And when He refers to mushrikeen, He has another tone. But when He refers to mu'mineen, there's another way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses them. And that is enough for our sharaf and enough for our honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this honor that He addresses us directly. Because if you look at it, all the ayat of Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to someone other than mu'mineen, He uses the wasita of His Prophet. That's why all of those ayat start with the word qul. Whereas when He's referring to mu'mineen, He does not require any sort of wasita. He does not start the verse with the word qul. Rather, He directly speaks to His audience who are mu'mineen. To give you a few examples, that ayat of Surah Jum'ah, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. When He's referring to those who are Yahudi or Haju, those who are Jews, He refers to them, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. O Prophet, tell these people. When He refers to kafirun, He says, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ or يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. Or when He refers to mushrikeen, when He refers to munafiqeen, the same way He uses the word qul, because He's telling His Prophet to go ahead and address and talk to these people. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not even compare them with mu'mineen, that He does not even want to engage in one-on-one conversation with them. That is the sharaf that He has given only to mu'mineen. So we heard and we found out that this verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding the mu'mineen by saying, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not cause any sort of discord and dispute among yourselves. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Remember the favors Allah has bestowed upon you. At the time, إِذْ كُنْتُمْ عَادَانِ. Remember the time when you were enemies of each other. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. He united your hearts with His grace. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Thus you became brothers with each other. What is the sha'n nuzul of this ayah? This ayat was revealed, obviously referring to those who were Muslimin of the time. And it was referring to the two groups of Aus and Khazraj. After they have brought the Iman and they had become Muslim, these people still had their differences from the Zamana Jahiliyyat. And they were still fighting over small little things. Even if it was something which was positive, they will start a quarrel and a fight over it. This sense, they had a niza and they had a fight over what? They were comparing each other's forefathers, saying, my forefather did that, my forefather did that. And that was the reason they both began this ikhtilaf among themselves. Who came to come out and bring this sulh between the two and have this peace between the two? None other than our Prophet. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse of Ali Imran, that all those two groups, those who are Muslim, do not start conflict among yourselves. And this is something which is carrying over, as we believe that this book is for all the times. It's not just for one particular era. Rather, this book is for everyone until the Day of Judgment. And we also talked about how this book, I don't know if I gave an example over here or somewhere else, in Baitul Ilm maybe, that how this book, although Allah is referring that it is guidance for muttaqeen, but it is for every single humanity, every single human being. But look at the result. If you refer to ayah number 104, right after this ayah when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling, so we found out who He's addressing, mu'mineen. We found out that what is He trying to say? He's trying to say, do not cause discord among yourselves. We found out the sha'n nuzul. Now look at the reason and the result in the following verse. Verse number 104 of Surah Al Imran. I would urge everyone, I'm sure everybody has Quran and the translations available. If not, they're available online. Just to go and look at the translations, and if you have tafsir available of these three particular verses of Quran, Surah Al-Imran, 102, 103, and 104. In verse number 104, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And the ayah continues. This is the result of that i'tisam bil-habl, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, let there be a nation among you who will call towards khair. Now we know who is the misdaq of this ayah. If you go ahead and search, our Prophet when he was leaving, he said, after me there will be at least 73 divisions within Islam. He's not talking about outside of Islam. Within Islam there will be this many disputes and discords, so that 73 different firaq will come about. All of whom will be saying that we are on the right path. None will say we're not on the right path. All of them will be saying. But if you compare them through the ayat of Quran, Allah says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. Let there be a nation among you who will call towards khair. This is where we see mazhab at-tashayyu, where it stands out. Go ahead and search in all the different firaq of Islam, which group still calls towards khair. It is only mazhab at-tashayyu in their azan and in their aqama. They still have the words hayya ala khair al-amal. Whereas others have removed this word to be the misdaq of this ayah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So these people, Aus and Khazraj, they were divided. They had this problem among themselves. Although they were bragging about something which was good, saying that my forefather has done so much and so on and so forth. For example, the third and the fourth generation over here, not that I'm giving anyone ideas, start quarreling and saying that, my forefathers built this center. My forefathers were the one behind building this masjid or uniting the community over here. It'll be something which they can be proud of, but if they start quarreling and start discord and dispute among themselves over this issue, that's what was happening at that time. And why was it happening? Because of jahiliyat, because of ignorance. So there we find out the first reason behind any sort of dispute is jahalat. Let it be known, wherever there's ignorance, there's jahalat, you will see dispute among those lines. And that's what was happening at that time as well. Today, if you look at the reason of our downfall, may be because of lack of knowledge. Ignorance that exists among ourselves. Look at the people who are calling themselves to be Muslims, yet they're destroying educational institutions. Those people who call themselves to be Taliban, the word Talib comes from a student. The one who seeks knowledge, Talibul Ilm. That's where the word Talib comes from, and the plural or the dual of Talib is Taliban. But what are they doing in the name of Islam? Destroying schools, destroying colleges, not letting girls study, even men, they don't want them to study. Why? Because if they gain some sort of knowledge, they know what is right and what is false. That's why they're trying to remove all of these things. So this is something which prevails. If ignorance is there, you will see this sort of dispute and discord among these groups. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So ikhtilaf began when they were boasting and bragging about what their forefathers had done. And that is something which comes if a person falls in love with these things which are shining, falls in love with the materialistic gains of this world. And we see that in the time of our Prophet, when he would be giving khutbah up from the minbar, people will come and sit wherever they felt like. There was no reserved place for anyone. Just the same way we don't have any reserved place for anyone over here. Now, I'm new here, I don't know if there might be, but people just come in and they sit wherever they feel like. And I don't think anyone will stop anyone from sitting wherever they feel like. So there was no reserved place at the time of our Prophet either. It was not that shurafa would sit right next to the mimbar of the Prophet, and those who were not shurafa would sit outside, or they won't even get a place to sit. No, that was not the case. Just like it's not the case today. So a beggar at that time walked in. I say beggar because his apparel or his attire looked like he was a beggar. Walks in the majlis of our Prophet and comes, sits right in the front because there was no reserved places. Now shurafa were sitting, those shurafa who were close to the Prophet, were sitting right in the front. And when this guy came and sat, one of these people, they kind of went aside, or they collected their clothing, in other words, showing some sort of discomfort when this person has sat next to them. You and I sometimes do that too, maybe knowingly and unknowingly. But nobody points it out to us. Prophet saw that, and Prophet was a man who would correct the things right where he sees. So he saw that happen and he pointed out towards that person. Among all the groups, when everybody is sitting there, he didn't care if that person felt bad or anything. It's the Prophet, father of the nation. He said, why did you do this? Can you justify your action? And that person felt embarrassed that he got caught doing something which Prophet disliked. And right away he repented and he said to the Prophet that I've made a mistake. Prophet said, did you fear that this beggar, this poor guy, when he came and sat next to you, that you will, because of his closeness to you, will afflict or have influence over your wealth? Did you fear that you will become like this person? What's the reason behind it? That person had no answer. Just imagine being put in such a situation where everybody is looking at you, you can't answer. Right away that person started feeling ashamed, and he apologized. And not only that, he said on top of that, because he was a wealthy person, that I will give half of my wealth to this poor gentleman whom I treated in this fashion. Now people said, wow, now that's the way to turn it around. MashaAllah, they're congratulating him, saying, wow, you're so lucky. Just look at your luck. A minute ago you were walking on the streets begging for food and money. Now you own half the wealth of this person. You know how much half the wealth of this person is? You won't even have to work for the next so many years, or even your generations won't have to work. When everybody settled down, they referred towards this beggar, this poor person. He said, I don't want anything from the wealth of this person. People said, Kufran ni'mat? Allah is trying to give you something through this person, and you're denying it? He said, I'll accept it. But what is the guarantee that tomorrow I won't treat another poor person the same way he just did? Because of the wealth that this person is transferring to me, what is the guarantee that I won't act the same way that this person just acted with me? So you look at that these people were fighting over wealth, they were fighting over materialistic gains, and all of that came because of the ignorance that they had lived in. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now Prophet is no longer among them. Who is going to go ahead and connect them? They're again quarreling. They're again fighting over. They again have disputes. Hisham, one of the companions of our sixth Imam, walks into the masjid and sees these people again fighting. He said, why are you fighting? We have Imam who can solve these issues. He said, we don't believe in Imamat. When we don't believe in Imamat, how do you suppose that we're going to go ahead and listen to what Imam has to say? He said, it is very simple to believe in Imamat. How do you not believe in it? He gave two examples, and if you can prove otherwise, I will stop believing in Imamat. He said, give us the examples. He said, the first is, at the time when our Prophet left this world, after his death, was everyone at the same level of knowledge as Prophet was? Had he done the upbringing of the people in a way, tarbiyat of the people, and educated them that they were all at the level of the Prophet? Because Prophet did not need any guidance. He said, no, not at that time, nor at now. Anyone was at that level. He said, on the other hand, when Prophet died, was taklif, wajibat and haram lifted from the people? He said, no, that's not the case either. He said, then how do you quarrel and how do you suppose that this ummah was left without anyone to come and guide who possessed the same amount of knowledge as Prophet? And to give you even further proof of that, every Prophet has a successor. And Imam put it very beautifully. Imam said, if Prophet is, he's resembling, if Prophet is like sun, then Imam or the successor of the Prophet is like Mahi Tamam. It's like a full moon. Why a full moon? Because a full moon benefits 100% from the sun. If Prophet is sun, then full moon will be the successor of the Prophet. The Shamu'un was the successor of Isa. Harun was the successor of Musa. Our Prophet is Khatamul Anbiya because he has the characteristics of all the previous Anbiya. He had the charisma and he had the powers and the miracles of Ibrahim and Ismail, Ishaq, Isa, Musa, and all of those prophets, because he's seal of Anbiya. Because he possesses the miracles of all the previous Anbiya, and he's like a sun, the one who's his successor, who's a full moon, will have the same characteristics as well. If someone goes ahead and then says that our imams are superior to other prophets, then don't doubt them. Because they're gaining from someone who himself is Khatamul Anbiya. Salawat Beji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So people didn't have any reply. They said to Hisham, yes, we believe what you're saying. But even this discord and this dispute existed among them. And that's why with the door of imamat, we believe in the infallibles, and we believe that everything that we're receiving from the doors of ma'asumeen, we feel that there's no khata in it. Prophet himself has said, in Quran it says, the ayat of Quran, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. If you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then follow my footsteps. Do my ittaba. You refer to Prophet, what does he have to say about this? He says, Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babuha. If you want to come to me, come through Ali. So you want to reach Allah, you have to go through Prophet. You want to get to Prophet, you have to come through Ali. And Ali is not here around today. Who do we have? The 12th of that successors. And that's why one of the reasons of this majalis, this series of majalis that we're having today and yesterday and inshallah tomorrow, is to have some sort of awareness as to how we prepare ourselves for the reappearance of our Imam. If we still have discord and dispute among ourselves and Imam has to come, how will we face our Imam? How are you going to go ahead and be in the army of Imam, which we're making the dua every day and every single night? If you're still having differences, forget one city, forget the whole country. In one center, in one masjid, and that is the case that exists in all of North America. Wherever you go, even in one masjid, there you'll see so many differences among the people, so many disputes and so many discords among the people that exist. Everyone has their own agenda. What they don't realize is that we're all working for one and only thing. That is Sa'adat Abadi. Through this channel of Imamat and through this channel of Masumeen. Everyone we're working towards the same thing. We don't realize the big picture. Everybody is saying different because the languages are different. We think we are all working towards different things. No. A beautiful example was given. There were 3 friends sitting together. He said, Faqih, Alim, Arif, they have different words, but they're all going towards the same thing. 3 friends were sitting together. One was Arab, the other one was Irani, and the other one was, I don't know, Latini, American, for example. If you can have these 3 combined together today. Just an example, analogy given by one of our Urafa. Arab, because they did not understand each other's language, the guy who was Arab, he said, they were all hungry. He said, I feel like having inab. I want to eat some inab. And Irani said, yes, I'm hungry. I want to eat some angur. And Latini or the American or wherever you want to say, he was also hungry. He said, I want to have some grapes. Now, because they did not understand each other's language, they were fighting over it, saying, no, we want to have inab. The other one was saying, no, we want to have angur. The third one was saying, no, we want to have grapes. Not realizing the fact that these 3 are same exact things, what we want. You and I are the same way. When we are in this center, when we are in another center, we are in different cities, we all are looking for one and only thing, that is Sa'adat Abadi, through this channel of Masumeen to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa alayhi. The Prophet is not around us. Reminded of that shi'r of Allama Iqbal, in which he's trying to point out the same exact thing. He said, Be Mustafa be rasan khish ra, ke deen hame oost. Agar be oo na rasidi, tamam bu lahabist. He said, get yourself as close as possible to Mustafa. Because if you want deen, you will only get it from the doorstep of Mustafa. If you can't get there, everything that you have received thus far, bu lahabi, is the religion of Abu Lahab. Now you will ask Allama Iqbal as well. The Prophet is not around us. What does he mean? Do we get physically close to the Prophet? No. You get yourself spiritually close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get yourself spiritually close to this Prophet. No matter how much wasiyat and will you make that have me buried next to these companions, or have me buried next to Prophet, or have me buried next to the Aimma Athar, that will not do any one bit good to you if your amal were not that way. No matter how much I go ahead and ask, okay, if I die, take my body and bury me next to Imam Raza, for example. The same way some people got themselves buried next to the Prophet, thinking that it will do them some good. I'm referring towards those wives of Hazrat Lut and Hazrat Nuh. I don't know where you're thinking, but the wives of Hazrat Lut and Hazrat Nuh, about whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Quran, Udkhul an-nara ma'ad dakhilin. Enter the hellfire with those who are entering. They wanted to do the same thing, get buried next to their husbands. But these 2 wives, they did not listen. They had propaganda against their own husbands who were Masoom, who were prophets. So it's not going to do you any good afterward that if you want to be buried next to one of these individuals. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So how to stay on this right path? How to have this unity? How do we work towards it? You might be saying that he's talking about it, but nothing solid is coming out as far as what is the formula behind it. The first and the basic formula for it is to follow the seerah of Masumeen. If you and I can apply and not just listen to it, read and apply the seerah of Masumeen, the biographies of our Imam and Masoom, and not just say wah wah on it and actually implement it in our lives, one thing at a time, even if maybe, Seerah Masumeen is the key of getting there. That's the main thing. Second thing, by removing the doubts that exist in the history today. Because history has been manipulated. A lot of other historians have come in and they've included so many things that this history is no longer reliable. Sources like Abu Huraira, who spent merely 1.5 years with our Prophet. Year and a half. A person wrote a book about him. Abu Hurairah spent a year and a half with the Prophet, or some 21 months, in other words. And he had 65,000 ahadith quoted from Prophet. He narrated 65,000 ahadith. If you divide that per day, it was 90 hadith a day. That means to say for the last year and a half of the Prophet, he was doing nothing but teaching Abu Hurairah hadith. So that is the case we have. So history has been manipulated. There's so many things which just don't make sense at all. Because Prophet himself has said that there will be a lot of ahadith which are associated towards me. But you go ahead and I have given you a criteria. Go ahead and refer to these ahadith according to Quran. And that was the propaganda of Banu Umayyah as well, if you look at it. The reason they had these ahadith in favor of these Hukumran of Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas, so they can justify what these people were doing. For the justification of these people, they had these ahadith. Qala Abu Hurairah about this person, that this person is so and so. To justify their acts. Even to an extent, to justify what Yazid did, they said, well, someone had to do it. Someone had to kill Hussein, and it was predestined. It was written. So Yazid went ahead and did it. He was majboor in doing it. And ahadith such as this, qaza wa qadr, ijbar and majboor and whatnot, just to go ahead and cover up and put a veil in front of the actions and atrocities of these people. To an extent that even if a leader is not adil, still you have to follow what he's saying. You have to be muti and obedient to the leader, even if that leader is not adil. So that's what you have to do. Refer to this hadith. It's a hadith by our Prophet in Sahihain. That's what Prophet is saying. That go ahead and follow this leader, even if this leader is not adil. First criteria when we come to any sort of following is starting from pesh namaz all the way to marja taqleed. Adalat is the main thing. You refer to Quran, فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. In many places, Quran itself is saying, do not follow those who are liars. Do not follow those who are not adil. Refer this hadith and compare it with the hadith of Prophet to this ayat, and you find yourself, what is the basis of this hadith? Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we got to remove the doubts. All the doubts that exist, at least if we can't do it for ourselves, when we teach it to our kids, we need to filter these things out. And I don't read these sort of things. Like, for example, even today, these people have a hard time understanding that Abu Talib left this world while he was a kafir. And a perception of a person, he said, I traveled to one of these Western countries, and one of our friends had died, so we wanted to go ahead and read Fatiha for him to go to the cemetery. He said, I made a trip to the cemetery. In the Western countries, the cemeteries are usually, the Muslim section is one where Christian section is also there. Even Hindus have their place to cremate. And, if there are other nations, other ethnic or religious groups. So they're divided. He said, we walked into this cemetery, and we were in the Muslim section of the cemetery. I was reciting Surah Fatiha. We saw this, line of cars coming in. The way they come in over here, bringing a janazah. He said, by the look of those cars, we could not tell whether this person who had died was a Muslim, was he a Christian, or were there Hindus bringing this guy to go ahead and cremate him. He said, until they came, they parked, and they came out, carrying this body towards, for example, the Hindu part of the cemetery. That's when they understood that these people were Hindus. He said, I looked at it, and it hit me. That today, by just looking at people and which part of the cemetery they walk in, I can understand that this person who is dead and in this coffin, I can figure out his religion. Hayf on those Muslimin that they have hard time figuring out the religion of Abu Talib when they don't see that when he died, who was carrying his janazah? None other than the Prophet and Imam Ali. And where did they take and bury him? In Jannatul Mu'alla. Muslim cemetery. And still these people have hard time believing the fact that Abu Talib left this world while he was a Muslim. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that's the second thing. We got to remove the doubts that exist. The third thing, again, I talked about it the other day as well, admit your faults. We have shortcomings. Everybody has shortcomings. Everybody has sinned once or twice or many times in their lives. Nobody's perfect other than Imam MASOM. So you got to go ahead and admit your faults. If you have done something, that is the way to go ahead and remove these discords and disputes. Because it comes to that, I did not do it, he did not do it, someone must have done it. And this is where it all originates. So I've talked about it before as well. We need to admit our sins. And the last thing is a constant reminder of death, maut. A person came to Imam and he said, Imam, when I'm in front of you, when I'm listening to your lecture, when I'm listening to your speech, the last thing that I'm affected by is shaitan. Shaitan is not affecting me. But as soon as I step out of this masjid, because shaitan is sitting right out of the doorsteps of masajid. Shaitan is not sitting in the bars or clubs or whatnot. Because he doesn't need to misguide those people. Shaitan is sitting right out of the masjid. He wants to go ahead and deviate those who are coming into the masjid. And when they leave this masjid. So he said, I listen to your lectures and shaitan cannot penetrate. But as soon as I walk out, shaitan attacks me. How can I overcome this thing the same way when I'm listening to your speech and your mau'izah? Imam ﷺ replied by saying, remember death and remember qayamat and remind yourself of these two things and it will keep shaitan away from you. Death and qayamat is going to go ahead and remind you. How is it going to go ahead and remind you? Because maut is something, as it says in famous ayat of Quran, kullu nafsin za'iqatul maut. There's no farar from maut. Everyone must face this death. Everyone must taste, whether it's shirini, whether it's not shirini, this death. And nobody can tell you how it tastes like because nobody can come back and tell you. But we're fortunate enough that our Aimma Masumeen have even told us about those things. That how should you be when you're facing this death? What are the steps that you should take when you're facing this death? Because death, there's no farar from it. Nobody can deny death. People today deny the existence of Allah, but they can't deny death. You will find a lot of people in this world. 6 billion, at least 70-60% of them might not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But all of them believe that there's death. Now what conception they have of death is a different story. But they all agree that there's death. Because they've seen it. Someone in their family must have died. There were some people. So there's no farar from death. There were some people who were farari from jihad as well. The way we run away from death, there were people who were running away from jihad. You and I make the same claim that we wish, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum, when we recite the ziyarat. That, oh Imam, we wish that we were with you. One of the scholars, they actually made this niyat. That, Imam, I wish I was with you. And in their dream, it came true. They saw the same event of Karbala. And the place where Imam ﷺ is standing to pray. And this person had made the same, Imam, I wish I was there taking these arrows on my chest when you were praying. Imam gave him the opportunity. This person narrates that when I got up to take this arrow, I could not bear it. I ran away. Saying, and when I woke up, that only those companions that you had, Imam, had the capability of doing such things. Today we make this claim, but when the opportunity is given, we're not able to fulfill it. So there were people who were running away from jihad at that time. And we laugh at these people. We make fun of them, we mock them, and rightly so, we can. Because these people used to run from the battlefield. But if any one of these kids who were sitting over here, if I was to ask them, go ahead and count furu'edeen for me, they will start counting by saying namaz, roza, hajj, zakat, khums, jihad. Jihad will be counted at the 6th level. Those people were running away from something which is at the level 6. There was a reason why it was listed in this fashion. There was a reason why namaz was put in front. Because namaz is accepted, everything else is accepted. If namaz is not accepted, nothing will be accepted. Those people were running away from the 6th element, and we laugh at those people, but ask ourselves, how many of us run away from the first 5 steps? How many of us are running away from this namaz, this roza, the hajj? It becomes wajib on us. A person came to our Prophet and said that hajj was wajib on me, and I failed to go there. What is the compensation for it? Prophet said and referred towards there was a mountain nearby. Prophet referred towards it and said, if you converted this whole mountain into talai ahmar, gold, the most expensive of the gold, and you gave that as sadaqah, it will not be compensation for hajj. That is the importance of hajj. Every single ibadat, especially this namaz that we have. So at this time when we're sitting over here laughing at those people, we should be laughing at ourselves because we are running away from the first 5, because 6th step is not wajib at us. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. Because namaz is deen, and deen is a savior. Whenever we are afflicted with something, we hit the musalla. Rightly so. At least we've gotten this thing down in our minds that, when we are afflicted with something, we refer to Allah. Look at the society that we live in. When these people are afflicted with something, they refer to bars, they go drink, they find solution in that. But we find solution contacting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't just contact Him when you're in need. Contact Him even when you are not in need. At all the times. That is where you can show that you're not doing this ibadat only for certain gains. I don't need to remind you of the ibadat of our Aimma Athar, Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he said there are 3 types of groups who perform the ibadat. Inna qawman abadullaha raghbatan fatilka ibadatu tujjar. First group worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for gains. That is the ibadat of a merchant. He said there's nothing wrong with it. I don't belong to that group. Inna qawman abadullaha rahbatan fatilka ibadatul abid. Group which worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they're scared of hellfire. And that is the ibadat of a servant. He said there's nothing wrong with it. You and I make this ibadat for the same purpose. Imam said, but I don't belong to that group. Inna qawman abadullaha hubban aw shukran lahu fatilka ibadatul ihrar. Imam said, this is the 3rd group which I belong to. Those people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to thank Him, to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the ibadat of a free man. And that is the group that you and I should also be working towards. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We look for zinat in other things. Quran points out to us, al-mal wal-banoon zinatul hayatul dunya. This worldly affairs, these children, the wealth, is only adornment of this worldly affair. On the other hand, Allah saying in the same Quran, خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ. Seek your zinat in your prayers, in your salat. So we see that zinat is in salat and not in mal and not in banoon. What can this mal and banoon do to you? The max that they can do for you is provide for your burial, provide you a shroud, kafan and dafan, and that's it. Afterwards, they can do nothing. وَالْبَاقِيَاتُ الصَّالِحَاتُ خَيْرٌ عِنْدَكَ خَيْرٌ ثَوَابًا وَعَمَلًا. Baqiyatu salihat is something which will help you out. Yes, there's one thing that these children can do for you. Only if these children are salih. Remember that hadith of our Prophet? In which he said, when a person dies, every action is cut off. All of the actions are cut off. In qata'a amalahu illa an salas. Everything is cut off except these 3 things. Salawat bheji Muhammad wale. एक दफा और सलवात भेजी मोहम्मद वाले. इंक़ता अमलहु इल्ला अन सलास. Three things that can still help this person who's leaving this world. His account will be closed, but there are still three things which can help this person. What are these three things? Waladin salih yad'u lahu. Obedient child who prays for him. So yes, mal wal banoon, Allah is saying they're both zinat of this dunya, but at the same time He's saying that these children can help you if you can raise obedient child who can pray for you. Second thing He says, sadaqatin jariyah. Any sort of sadaqah that you gave, any sort of charity which is started on your name, it will keep on benefiting you. But sometimes there are wrong examples that are left by a person. People ask, what did Imam Ali do for the 25 years of his silence? Imam did something. If that Imam needed any sort of sawab and reward, Imam did something that he will be rewarded even today. Again, I will say, if Imam needed any reward. What was he doing? He made himself and his family independent by digging these wells, which are still present today, and people are still benefiting from it. So when people still benefit from it, who is getting the sawab for it? The one who dug these wells. But at the same time, some people leave negative examples. When they leave negative examples, every time a person performs those things, guess what? Who's going to get the azab for it? The person who's doing it will get the azab for it, and the person who left this legacy will get the azab for it as well. Like the way some people removed Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the way people removed Hayya ala khair al-amal and other things. Good things they remove from it. Not only those who are not doing it will be judged for those things, but also those who left this legacy. Forget about those people. Let's worry about ourselves. What kind of legacy are we leaving? People say, well, you know, weddings and these things, they come only once in a life. Well, nowadays it's not true. But they come once in a life, and we want to be able to go ahead and give our kids as much as possible. Give them a wedding that nobody has ever seen, and show it to the people. The first thing is show off for vanity, so that everybody sees and says, wow, look at this person. Look how much he's spending. Look how much he loves his kids. And imagine this person being someone who's influential in the community. And he has this type of marriage where there's dancing going on, there's music going on and whatnot. People see this thing from this person and they get influenced because this person is very influential. Later on, when they start doing it, every single person who does it gets the azab for it, and also the person who left this legacy will be getting the azab for it. So when you do something and it's affecting people, let it be known that you are still partner in it and you're getting your share of azab in it as well. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A person who, there's nothing wrong with accumulating it, mal wal banoon, but what is wrong is falling in love with it. Alladhi jama'a malan wa addada. Falling in love with it is something which is denounced, that you should not do. So you look at it, a person came to Imam and he had gone bankrupt. He came to Imam and he said to Imam, oh Imam, I've lost all my wealth. Imam replied by saying, you're still richest man in this world. Imam said, the person said, Imam, are you mocking me? I can't even put food on the table for my kids. Imam said, you're still the richest man in the world. He said, Imam, come on. You know what I'm going through. Imam said, what if I was to say that I will give you all the gold of this world, whether the one that has been discovered and the one that has not been discovered yet. First of all, do you believe that I'm capable of doing so? He said, yes. The whole world is in your tasarruf. You can't do it. Imam said, what if I was to give you all the gold, all the wealth of this world? That person said, then I will say, yes, I am the richest man in the world. Imam said, I'll give you all that, but with one condition. Condition is that you give up hubb Ahl Bayt. Imam made the condition of hubb Ahl Bayt. When the person heard about it, Imam, this sauda, this transaction is not something that I will take. I'm not going to give up love of Ahl Bayt for any amount of money. Imam ﷺ said, I was offering you something. If you go ahead and put in monetary basis, you would have been the richest man in the world. But you denied it for something, love of Ahl Bayt. And then you said that you are bankrupt. And then you say that you have lost all the wealth. You're still the richest man in the world if you still have this love of Ahl Bayt. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But we still need to keep this faith in what we do. Going back to the ibadat, why were these prophets, and we see especially for Hazrat Shu'aib, that he's crying and he's weeping. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns towards him and said, why are you crying so much? If you're crying for the hell, I've made hell haram on you. If you're crying that I will not send you to paradise, the keys of paradise is in your hands. He replied by saying, oh Allah, you know why I'm crying. I'm not crying for the love of paradise or the fear of the hellfire. Rather, I'm crying because of the firaq that I have with you. I'm crying because I feel that I'm away from you. The same thing Amirul Mu'mineen is saying in this dua kumail. Asbir ala harri narik. I will be able to show patience in front of the hellfire. فَكَيْفَ أَصْبِرُ عَلَى فِرَاقِكَ. But how do I show patience from being away from you? This firaq is something which these awliyaullah are teaching us. Yet we take our ibadat, the means that has been given to us, as the means to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so heedlessly. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this Quran, يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. It will be asked from these people, these criminals, these mujrimeen, مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرٍ. How did you end up being in this hellfire? What will be the reply? لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. We were not among the worshippers. Make yourself a worshipper. Worshipper is not someone who's praying all the time. Worshipper is the one who feels the essence of ibadat. Remember the event when one of our imams was passing by a house and he heard the sound of music coming out of it. House of Bishr Hafi. And Imam heard the sound of music. His kaneez came outside, and what did Imam say? Whose house is it? The person who owns this house, is he a ghulam or is he azad? Kaneez replied by saying, he's azad. He's not a ghulam. Imam replied, I wish he was ghulam. What did Imam mean? Kaneez goes back inside and tells the reason that she was delayed. A person stopped by, hearing the music, and he said, I wish the owner of this house was ghulam. Imam was referring towards this servitude, ubudiyat, that if he could feel the essence of ibadat, and he was ghulam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not the ghulam of the people surrounding him. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One last thing, inshallah, because I look at the clock and I think I've taken up all my time. In regards to this namaz that we've been given, you know, it's Miraj al-Mu'min. It's something which has been given to us as Miraj, that Prophet went on to. And Prophet says himself that how can a person who performs it can do anything else in disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he gave an analogy of this namaz by this. He said, لَوْ كَانَ ala babi dari ahadikum nahrun. If there was a nahr, a lake outside your door, today we have swimming pools, so take that as an example. If there was a nahr right outside of your doorstep, Prophet says, فَاغْتَسَلَ فِي كُلِّ يَوْمٍ خَمْسَ مَرَّاتٍ, and you were to bathe in it 5 times a day. In that nahr, in that lake, if you were to go ahead and bathe in it 5 times a day. He asks a question, أَكَانَ يَبْقَى فِي جَسَدِهِ مِنَ الدَّرَنِ شَيْءٌ, will there be any sort of najasat left on your physical body? Imagine yourself dipping under the water 5 times a day. Will there be any external impurity on your body? People who were sitting there, they said, no, Prophet. There will not be any sort of physical impurity on us. Prophet said, قَالَ فَإِنَّ مَثَلَ الصَّلَاةِ كَمَثَلَ النَّهْرِ الْجَارِي. Example of this salat is the example of this nahr jari. That every time you go ahead and stand up in this worship 5 times a day, it removes the internal impurity from you. The way this water is removing the external impurity from you, this namaz will remove the internal impurity from you. So if I can just recap, inshallah, everything that I have left, we will discuss tomorrow, that we need to understand when we talk about unity, and we talk about having or getting rid of these discourse and disputes among ourselves. First thing we talked about is working on Seerah Masoomin. Read and read. Don't just rely on one source, that everything will be given to you from this one source. It is a good institution. We learn a great deal out of it, but also get in the habit of reading. Who do you think that these books are there for? Only for ulama? That they read and they come and they explain to you? If you can gain hands towards that and get in the habit of reading as well, it will benefit you as well. But whenever you have some sort of problem and you don't understand something, refer to those who are experts in the field. But get in the habit of reading the seerah of Masoomin. Because I can, or people like me, or those who are, I'm just a student, but those ulama who come, they can only give you so much information about imams in 1 hour. When you really sit down and emphasize and focus on the seerah of Masoomin, you will see how imams lived their lives, and it is still relevant to our lives today. That's one thing, that's seerah Masoomin. Second, again, if you come across some sort of disputes, if you come across some sort of doubts which do exist in the history, again, you go ahead and refer to the experts in the field. Third thing, don't be ashamed in admitting your faults. And last but not least, as we mentioned, that keep on reminding yourself of death and maut. If we can do these 4 things, there may be more other things. Inshallah, we'll talk about some of the reasons of ikhtilaf, some of the reasons of disputes tomorrow in detail. There will be more things. But this is one formula that if we can apply to ourselves, inshallah, we will see good results from it. And that is the essence. Yahi wo payam hai, jo hame Karbala se bhi mil raha hai. इमाम अलैहिस्सलाम, हमारे और आपके पहले इमाम, जब इनको ज़रबत लगती है और इमाम को लेके जाते हैं घर की तरफ, इमाम का कातिल भी पकड़ा जाता है, मलऊन इब्न मुलजम को पकड़ लिया जाता है, इमाम के नज़दीक होता है, इमाम को कराहने की आवाज़ आती है किसी के, पूछते हैं ये कौन है? फरमाया इब्न मुलजम है। पूछा क्यों कर रहे हो? कहा मेरे हाथों को बहुत सख्ती से बांधा हुआ है। इमाम क्या फरमाते हैं? इमाम कहते हैं कि इसके हाथों को खोल दो या इसके हाथों को हल्का कर दो। ये रस्सी जो जोर से बांधी हुई है, इस रस्सी को हल्का कर दो। क्यों इमाम ये फरमा रहे हैं? شاید امام یہ پیغام دینا چاہ رہے ہوں گے کربلا والوں کو، کوفے والوں کو، شام والوں کو، کہ کبھی اگر تمہارے درمیان کوئی اسیر آئے، اور خاص کر کے کوئی اسیر اس خاندان اہل بیت سے، تو دیکھو جیسا میں نے اپنے مجرم کے ساتھ کیا ہے، جیسا میں نے اپنے اسیر کے ساتھ کیا ہے، تم بھی ان اسیروں کے ساتھ، ولو ان کہ وہ اسیر کوئی عام اسیر نہ ہوں گے بلکہ خانوادہ نبوت سے تعلق رکھتے ہوں گے، اہل بیت سے ان کا تعلق ہوگا، دیکھو ان کے ساتھ کس طریقے سے پیش آنا۔ امام نے تو اپنا فرض ادا کر دیا، لیکن آئیے دیکھیے کربلا کے بعد سے کوفے کے بازاروں میں اور پھر راستے میں کوفے سے لے کے شام تک کس طریقے سے ان اسیروں کو لے جایا جا رہا ہے۔ بس ایک واقعہ کل آپ کی خدمت میں عرض کیا تھا، آج دوسرا واقعہ سنتے جائیے، شاید جناب سیدہ ہم سے یہ قبول کر لیں، ہمارے یہ آنسو قبول کر لیں، اجرکم علی اللہ، خدا آپ کو کسی غم میں نہ رلائے سوائے غم آل محمد کے۔ ایک شخص فرماتا ہے، کہتا ہے، راوندی نے اپنی کتاب میں بھی اس روایت کو لکھا ہے کہ میں مکے میں کھڑا ہوا تھا، خانہ کعبے کے پاس تھا، دیکھا ایک شخص گریہ و زاری کے ساتھ دعا کر رہا ہے، کہہ رہا ہے خدا میرے گناہوں کو معاف کر دے، ولو ان کہ میں جانتا ہوں کہ میرے گناہ معافی کے قابل نہیں ہیں۔ کہا میں اس شخص کے پاس گیا، کہا تو کیوں مایوس ہوتا ہے خدا کی رحمت سے؟ خدا تو ارحم الراحمین ہے، ہر طریقے کے گناہ کو معاف کر دے گا، سوائے شرک کے تو اپنے گناہ کی کیوں اس طرح سے گفتگو کر رہا ہے؟ کہا تمہیں بتاؤں میرا گناہ کیا ہے؟ وہ اس کو لے کے جاتا ہے، مسجد سے باہر لاتا ہے، کہتا ہے میرا گناہ یہ ہے، میں ان 50 لوگوں میں سے تھا جن کو یہ ماموریت دی گئی تھی کہ ان اسیروں کو کوفے سے لے کے شام تک لے کے جانا۔ اجرکم علی اللہ، کہا میں ان 50 لوگوں میں سے تھا کہ جنہوں نے اہل بیت کے خانوادے کو سختیوں جھڑکیوں کے ساتھ کوفے سے شام لے کے گیا تھا، ان پہ سختیاں کی تھی، تعزیانے برسائے تھے، کسی کو رونے کی اجازت نہیں دی تھی۔ کہا ایک وہ دن آیا رات میں جب ہم رکے ایک جگہ پہ آرام کرنے کے لیے، ابھی ہم اپنے کھانے پینے میں مصروف تھے، نوش و عشرت میں مصروف تھے، ہم نے سارے شہداء کو صندوقوں میں رکھ دیا تھا، ایک شخص آیا ہمارے پاس، کہا فرمایا یہ وہی راہب تھا جس کے دین کے بارے میں کوئی یہودی کہتے ہیں، کچھ عیسائی لکھتے ہیں۔ راہب آیا، کہا تم لوگ کون ہو؟ کہا ہم کوفے سے آ رہے ہیں۔ کہا کہاں جا رہے ہو؟ کہا شام کا قصد ہے۔ کہا یہ قافلے والے کون ہیں؟ کہا یہ اسیر ہیں۔ کہا کس کے اسیر ہیں؟ کہا اسیر آل محمد ہیں، آل محمد کے خاندان سے تعلق ہے ان کا۔ کہا تمہارے درمیان کیا حسین بھی ہے؟ کہا حسین کو قتل کر دیا گیا، ان کا سر موجود ہے۔ کہا مجھے کیا یہ سر دے دو گے؟ کہا نہیں، یزید کے پاس یہ سر لے کے جانا ہے، ایسے تو تمہیں یہ سر نہیں دیں گے۔ کہا میں تم کو اس کے بدلے 10,000 دینار دوں گا۔ ان لوگوں نے اس سودے کو قبول کیا اور وہ سر نکال کے اس راہب کو دے دیتے ہیں۔ وہ راہب اس سر کو دیکھتا ہے، کہتا ہے کہ میں عیسائی ہوں، حضرت عیسیٰ کا ماننے والا ہوں، اگر حضرت عیسیٰ کی کوئی اولاد ہوتی تو ہم ان کے ساتھ ایسا رویہ پیش نہیں آتے، تم کیسے مسلمان ہو کہ تم تو مسلمان ہی نہیں ہو، نبی زادے کے ساتھ تم نے یہ حشر کیا اور نبی زادیوں کے ساتھ یہ کر رہے ہو۔ وہ شخص اس سر کو لے کے گھر جاتا ہے، اس کو دھوتا ہے، اس کو کافور سے دھوتا ہے، اس کو دوسری چیزوں سے پاک کرتا ہے، اس کے اوپر سے صفائی خون ہٹاتا ہے، پھر چاہتا ہے اس سے گفتگو کرنا، حضرت عیسیٰ کا واسطہ دیتا ہے۔ وہ سر تکلم کرتا ہے، کہتا ہے مولا میں نے آپ کے جد کا تو دیدار نہیں کیا، لیکن کیا میری شفاعت ہو جائے گی؟ دیکھیے ایک عیسائی اپنی شفاعت کی بات کر رہا ہے اور مسلمانوں کو شفاعت پہ ابھی تک کے یقین نہیں آیا۔ مولا نے ایک دم سے تکلم کیا، باعجاز تکلم کیا، کہا میرے جد کے دین پہ جو شخص
ہوگا اس کی شفاعت کی ذمہ داری ہم لیتے ہیں۔ اس راہب نے فوراً اپنے شہادتین پڑھی، مسلمان ہو گیا۔ امام نے کہا ہاں میں تیری شفاعت کروں گا، میں تیرا شفیع بنوں گا روز جزا۔ وہ شخص لاتا ہے، سر امام کو واپس دے دیتا ہے اور ان لوگوں کے اوپر بدبختی کرتا ہے کہ تم لوگ لعنت بھیجتا ہے کہ تم نے نبی زادے کے ساتھ کیا کیا۔ لیکن دیکھیے خدا بھی یہی فرماتا ہے، جب وہ لوگ آگے بڑھے ہیں 10,000 دینار آگے لے کے چلے ہیں، ایک جگہ جا کے جب انہوں نے کھولا اس کو تو وہ تبدیل ہو چکے تھے اور وہ دینار نہ رہے تھے۔ ایک طرف آیت لکھی ہوئی تھی وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا، خدا کو غافل نہ سمجھنا، اما يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ، جو چیزیں جو ظالمین نے انجام دی ہیں خدا کو غافل گیر نہ سمجھنا۔ اور دوسری طرف لکھا تھا سَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ۔ بار الہ ہماری اس عبادت کو قبول فرما، گناہ گار ہیں ہمارے گناہوں سے درگزر فرما، ہمیں اہل بیت علیہ السلام کے نقش قدم پر چلنے کی توفیق عطا فرما، ہمیں ان کی تعلیمات پر عمل کرنے کی توفیق عطا فرما، ہمارے امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما، ہمیں ان کے اعوان و انصار میں شمار کر۔ ماتم حسین
جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کہیں ملتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کہیں ملتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں۔ دیکھو نا میرا تماشا، رو کے عابد نے کہا، ساتھ میرے آئی ہے ہو کے وہ قیدی بردا، ننگے سر جس کو کبھی، ننگے سر جس کو کبھی بابا نے بھی دیکھا نہ تھا، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کہیں ملتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں۔ دیکھو نا میرا تماشا، رو کے عابد نے کہا، ساتھ میرے آئی ہے ہو کے وہ قیدی بردا، ننگے سر جس کو کبھی، ننگے سر جس کو کبھی بابا نے بھی دیکھا نہیں، عابد جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کہیں ملتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے ڈر سے سہمی ہے سکینہ خون گالوں سے رواں پوچھتی دکھلا کے عابد کو تماچوں کے نشان کب وطن میں جائیں گے کب وطن میں جائیں گے کوئی یہاں اپنا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں سامنے عابد کے بن میں جل گیا زہرا کا گھر اس طرح زینب کو لایا شام میں وہ ننگ سر دیکھا ہے کائنات میں دیکھا ہے کائنات میں صابر کوئی ایسا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے رکتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے رکتا نہیں جس کو زینب کے لیے جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کہیں ملتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں ڈر سے سہمی ہے سکینہ خون گالوں سے رواں پوچھتی دکھلا کے عابد کو تماچوں کے نشان کب وطن میں جائیں گے کب وطن میں جائیں گے کوئی یہاں اپنا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے رکتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے رکتا نہیں ضد نہ کرنا تو سکینہ شام میں زینب کے ساتھ سینے پہ سو جانا آ کے جب بھی ہو جائے گی رات لوٹ کر آئے گا اب لوٹ کر آئے گا اب بی بی تیرا بابا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے نہیں جس کو زینب کے لیے جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کہیں ملتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں سامنے عابد کے بن میں جل گیا زہرا کا گھر اس طرح زینب کو لایا شام میں وہ ننگ سر دیکھا ہے کائنات میں دیکھا ہے کائنات میں صابر کوئی ایسا نہیں عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں عابد بیمار کی جس کو زینب کے لیے، جس کو زینب کے لیے پردہ کوئی ملتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں، عابد بیمار کی آنکھوں سے خون رکتا نہیں۔ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
صلی اللہ علیہ یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیکم ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم وعلی جدک و ابیک، السلام علیکم وعلی امک و اخیک، السلام علیکم وعلی الائمۃ المعصومین من ولدک و بنیک، السلام علیکم وعلی جمیع المستشہدین معک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم بالفضل عباس ابن امیر المؤمنین صاحب اللواء ابو القربہ سقائے حرم حامی الزینح البت العلقمی العمید باب الحوائج ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم یا غریب الغرباء، السلام علیکم من الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام علیکم شمس الشموس فائنس النفوس، السلام علیکم ایھا المدفون بعرضتوس، السلام علیکم مغص الشیعۃ والزوار فی یوم الجزاء، السلام علیکم سلطان العرب والعجم، السلام علیکم ابو الحسن علی بن موسیٰ رضا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم صاحب الزمان، السلام علیکم خلیفۃ الرحمن، السلام علیکم امام الانس والجان، السلام علیکم مظہر الایمان، السلام علیکم شریک القرآن، جعلنا من اعوانک وانصارک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد۔
مومن و مومنات، کل کی مجلس ٹھیک اپنے وقت مقررہ یعنی بعد نماز مغربین شروع ہو جائے گی۔ مغرب کی نماز ٹھیک 7:30 بجے ادا کی جائے گی